Fun fact 48, or deep thoughts, or my 2 cents, but we can just call it 48. Somebody has asked me to speak on parenting, child rearing, teaching, stuff like that. Fun fact 48, or deep thought 48, is my approach to parenting, or my idea about parenting, is you have to have a license to drive a car. Most places you have to have a license to own a gun or shoot a gun. You have to license your pets. Yeah. There's a lot of things that need to be licensed, insured, etc. And don't get me wrong, I think there's a lot of wonderful teachers and there's a lot of wonderful parents who are great parents and great teachers out there. I just think that there's a lot of parents who have children, a lot of people who have children, probably for the wrong reasons. And also, how do I put it? Yeah, I guess I say a lot when I'm either sighing or I'm not quite sure what to say or how to say it, because it's a very touchy subject. But I think there's a lot of parents and teachers that could use further training, or that maybe before you are allowed to have children, you should have some training. At least I would say 90% of the people that I meet, 90% of the teachers, and probably 90% of the parents, their approach to parenting is often that this child is a possession, or it's just the thing to do, or they didn't get to live out their dreams and so they're going to make their children live out their dreams, or just to keep the bloodline going. That was not my approach. I don't know if my approach is the best approach. I can tell you my daughter was very happy with it. And a lot of the children that I mentor are happy with me not telling them who to be. And I think that's a big problem in society when it comes to the educational system and teaching. And, well, capitalism influences it all, honestly. Some parents have children. I had a friend growing up, and because she was the only daughter, she had different responsibilities of cleaning the house and cooking and doing certain things. And it was a cultural thing that she didn't have the freedoms that the young boys had. And the oldest boy had less freedoms than the younger boy. So, and we learn as parents, as we have more children, how to be better parents a lot of times, but that doesn't help. Well, I had my daughter. I wanted more children, but wasn't able to. But I did have my daughter, and my approach was, here's a life that I'm responsible for. I brought this life into the world, and I'm responsible for this life. And I want this person to live up to their potential and have the best life that they can have. I don't want them to live my dreams out. They're not a possession. They're not somebody for me to order around. I'm here to help them navigate the world and learn and grow and become the best person or the best version of themselves that they can be. I don't think this is the approach of many parents. And a lot of times I know parents can be overwhelmed, and it's just giving orders or controlling the situation. And sometimes you do need to control the situation as a parent, but for the most part, you're learning too. I don't care how many books you read or how many experts you've talked to, you're learning to be a parent too. And I don't think having a child and then having a nanny raise your child, this is your job. It's your job to make sure this person can become the best version of themselves, and not the best version of you or your spouse or who you think they should be or what you think makes them successful in life. It's who they should be, who they're meant to be. And my daughter's different from me, but we have a lot of characteristics in common. But the main thing that we set up, I think, immediately is I do what I say I'm going to do. I don't do empty threats. I have clear do's and don'ts. And I don't say do as I say, not as I do. I don't say just say no. I talk about how to figure it out, how to think about it, how to think for yourself, how to look at something and try to figure out what the best thing to do is. I often didn't. I gave her clues. Sometimes I would say, okay, here's an example. Me and my daughter, as young children, had kind of the same trait. I had one approach to trying to correct the trait, and she had my approach. And it had to do with wearing clothes. I often picked my favorite top and my favorite pants, and sometimes they did not look right together. How do you say it? It's not just matching. It was, well, as I told my daughter, I would say, oh, honey, that polka dot pink and purple top doesn't really go with the vertical striped green and orange pants. They don't match. And her response to me was, well, and she's like 4 or 5, so come on. And she would say, do I have to match? And I had to think about it. And I'm like, actually, there's no rule that says, there's no law, there's no rule. There's societal pressures that you match. But do you have to match? No. You can wear your favorite top and your favorite shirt, and if they're totally not matching, you can wear them. So there's nothing that really says you can't, but there is societal pressure for you to match. And I said, no, you don't have to. And so she would wear it to school. People thought I was probably nuts, or she was nuts. But I think a lot of children have their favorite top and their favorite pants or skirt or whatever. And that's what they want to wear for that day. And if it doesn't match, what's the big deal? Now, I did say to my daughter, that and that, actually, these two pieces of items that you're wearing that don't match could cause a seizure. People are going to be blinking at you all day. I mean, you're going to be hard to look at, and it could actually cause a seizure in somebody who may have a seizure issue. So this that doesn't match, it's hard on the eyes, but I'm not going to pass out. This one could actually maybe cause a seizure. Like if it's a metallic material that's like silver with black, and then you have a gold and metallic material with red, or I don't know, but she had certain outfits that the patterns would just, it's like one of those things you look at, that people say, don't look at this, it could cause a seizure. Yeah, that type of thing. That was kind of my draw the line, that could cause a seizure. With me, my sister was the one, we shared a room growing up, and she would be embarrassed if I didn't look right. It wasn't even if I didn't match. It was like if I didn't look okay. I couldn't look better than her, but I couldn't look awful if people knew I was her sister. And so, and we were very different people too. And so she would, when I was very young, she would just dress me. And then as I got older and was choosing my own clothes, she would get me to change my clothes before going to school most of the time, because she didn't want people seeing her sister not matching or not wearing something that was looked stylish or something like that. Eventually, she gave up on me, which was great. But I actually had an outfit in my teens that I called the watermelon suit. It was like this green shirt with poofy shoulders, not shoulder pads, but just poofy, and it was kind of tight sleeves. It was green. It had black dots. And then I had pink overalls. Then I had these pink slip-on shoes, pinkish purple slip-on shoes with black bows on them, and I called that my watermelon outfit. Just, and I got to wear it because she had gone off to college, or actually by then she had just given up on trying me to dress in a way that would be suitable. And I had my gypsy face too. So, and she siblings and parents, I mean, siblings, I can't blame her too much. She wasn't supposed to be a parent. She was 2 years older than me. She wasn't supposed to be my parent. My parents were great. They had their own issues. Over giving, over nurturing. When I was very thin as a child, before I hit puberty, people thought I was malnourished, and my mom would force feed me. When I hit puberty, I blew up like a balloon, and I looked like I was 20 years old when I was 10. So that wasn't great. I had some other issues too, but I'm just looking at from the standpoint of being an adult now too, and looking at some of the parents of people around me. I've worked in schools, I've seen teachers, and sometimes the approaches to children, every child is a gift and different. And you can't teach, you can teach a majority of the children the same way and they'll come along, but a lot of people learn differently, and you really need to do an individual approach with each child. And that's if you have multiple children, like you're a mother and you have multiple children. These children are not the same. You love them differently because they are different people, and you don't have the same, you don't expect one who might have issues processing something to process the same way as the other children. You know that each one of them, my brother was more handy. He wasn't great at school. My sister worked really hard at school and did very well. My brother, no matter how hard he worked, it was hard, and it was a time when dyslexia wasn't really identified all the time, and so he was dyslexic in the end. But no matter how hard he worked in school, they didn't teach him in a way that he can learn. But he was a brilliant cook. He was a brilliant builder of things. He was a brilliant landscape architect. But when it came to sitting and learning and reading and memorizing and taking tests and spitting it back and sitting still in class and all of that, that was not where his energy was and where his brilliance was. And for me, a lot of that stuff came naturally. I did very well, and I didn't work very hard for it. There's other things I've worked really hard for, and they haven't happened. But hey, and I'm not an artist. I can't draw. Like, from my mind, in my mind, I can inspire others, and I can see it. But by the time it gets to these hands go. It doesn't. What's in my mind doesn't make it to my hand. And I know there's techniques and training and stuff, but people have tried to help me with that, and I'm just not that person. But my sister was a very good artist, actually, and my brother was very good with his hands, so, and building things. He didn't need schematics. He could just look at a piece of wood and make something out of it. And it was really well done. So everybody has their own brilliance. So you don't teach children, and you don't parent each child the same. You have to have one standard set of rules, but everybody learns differently. And I just think that parents before you're allowed to have a child, you should have some basic understanding of what. I think I've been talking a long time because my bubbles just went off, but this is a long subject about how to approach children, how to bring life into the world, how to think about teaching and parenting, especially parenting. We have to give the children a safe place to learn and grow. They don't have a safe place to learn and grow. They have so much against them, and they can't freely learn and grow if they don't feel safe. They're too busy trying to fit in or protect themselves, and or be the person that says, oh gosh, there was one kid in my daughter's school, 3rd grade, loved him so much, but he had a shadow. He was set back a year. He'd come to the school new because no other school would take him. He came into the class, and him and my daughter became fast friends. He started out as a bully, and then he became her protector, and it was probably one of the only years she wasn't bullied all year. But he came from a school that if you didn't beat somebody up the first day of school, you weren't going to make it through the school year. And so he came to this school and he beat somebody else the first day and got in trouble. It wasn't a good thing. People were scared of him, so that helped him protect my daughter. But he really learned and he grew a lot. The class came together to help him feel safe and feel accepted. And by the end of the year, he thanked everybody, and he thanked everybody for putting up with his bad behavior sometime. And I thought that was commendable. And the next year when he came to school, yes, his academics weren't way up there, but there were still a lot of people that he would test people, and you needed to pass the test. And the 4th grade teacher said she wouldn't deal with him, period, and kicked him out of the school. So that was sad because he was learning and growing in that environment, and he did feel safe. But when he went to a new classroom, you had to reestablish that he was safe and what the boundaries were. And I just have seen so many things where the students or the children have not had the safe place, the feeling that they're loved. A lot of children have been, from their peers, from the teachers, from other parents, have been treated like they're less than, and that they really couldn't be themselves. And in an education system, the way they teach a lot of times is all these kids have to fit in the same box. And if they don't, then we're going to put an acronym on them to say that they have some issue that needs to be dealt with, or an IEP or something. And we can't just teach each individual child. It would take a lot. But I think there's some accommodation that should happen, but I don't think we should over accommodate either when it comes to the educational system. But mostly it's like a lot of the issues that I see with students and with children that I see today is that their parents really are either controlling them or forcing them to be somebody they're not, or telling them this is what you're going to do to be successful, or you're not going to end up like me. But they don't understand that that's not actually, being the opposite of them may not be a good thing either. So we really need to listen, I think, a lot more. I think we really need to listen to the children and the students a lot more and really find out what's going on. But I guess all in all, what I'm getting at is that before you have a child, or before you decide to become a teacher, you're becoming a teacher because you know you can get a job and a good paycheck, because you love children, because you want to help guide children. That's loving and guiding children, that's good, but then why not just be a parent? And if you're looking for a job, being a teacher is not an easy job, and you have to want to help each child that walks in that room learn and grow, even if what you're teaching them to surpass is something that's difficult to teach. Social, emotional, behavioral learning. I've been hearing a lot more of that, along with STEM, and I think those are really good things. But we're putting so much on the teachers that the parents really need to be parents and listen and create that safe space. Me and my daughter, we can say anything. Sometimes it's hurtful, but you have to know that there's not going to be repercussions for saying how you feel. And that goes back to feelings are your only truth. And own your truth and own your actions. So, and other things just off the top of my head, there was a girl that people are worried about abortion. Well, there was a girl I knew when I was in my 20s. She would get pregnant by different guys, by same guys. She liked being pregnant. She liked the attention she got. She liked how she felt. But mostly the attention she got from being pregnant and how people treated her when she was pregnant. That's kind of a psychological issue. Yes, that probably should be weeded out before we say, hey, let this girl have as many babies as she wants. I think her first 3 kids, her parents took in, but they couldn't take in all the kids that she had. She would just get pregnant one right after another just because she liked how people treated her and she liked how it felt, but she didn't really want to take care of the children. But she didn't mind her parents taking care of the children. She wanted them to take care of all of them, but they were older and they couldn't. But she didn't really want to put them up for adoption either. They were her children, but she just didn't want to have to raise them and take care of them and be responsible for them. And I know that the next 3 children went into foster care and she got pregnant again. So we have people doing the opposite of what other people are doing, is using abortion for contraception, which shouldn't happen either. It shouldn't be on the women, it should be on the men. And because a man, as they say, a man every day, how many women he can sleep with in a year, every day, that's how many babies he can create. A woman can only make 1 baby a year. A man can make thousands. So I really think we need to look at the men when it comes to not creating babies and not having abortions, not having children that are unwanted. Because then that's just another thing, isn't it? That's the extreme of not parenting. And if you don't want to be a parent and you're forced to be a parent, that's another issue, because then you wonder why people make the choices that they do, because they weren't wanted. And they know they weren't wanted. And then they have to live in a world where they feel they're not wanted. And then they figure, well, I'm not wanted and nobody gives a crap about me, so I'm just going to do whatever the fuck I want to do. Or I'm just going to take a lot of drugs so I can feel better about who I am. I can pretend to be something more than I am, or more than what other people told me I was. So sad. So sad what we do to these children who then become adults, and we're like, oh, they're so gross and they're living on the street, and oh, well, it's the choices in their lives they made, and da da da. It is not that. It is not that. It starts from the very beginning of how they feel coming into the world, how they're educated, how their parents support them. You don't have children for you. And in my case, I had children for the world, because I wanted to create good citizens of the world. People who even if it's just in a small community, make a difference and help make things better. I hope that's who they would become, but if that's not what they were going to become, I would support anything that they said. But I do have limitations, so, and me and my daughter have discussed those limitations about sexuality. Um, and her take on that is, if whoever she's going to be intimate with can give consent, then she can fall in love with anybody who can give consent. As we've talked about inanimate objects, bestiality, necrophilia, I said, please don't go there. That's just too much for me to handle. But but she's very open to love in any form as long as the other person can give consent. And I kind of like that idea. I'm not that person. I'm more limited. She's more open. But that's one thing right there. And people limiting who these people are going to become, who these children, who these souls are going to become. You got to see what they love. You got to expose them to things and expose them to the world in order so they can choose what feels right and good to them and what their talents are and how they want to move in the world. And hopefully you can guide them and help them become, like I said, the best version of themselves. And hopefully teachers can do the same thing. But I think I don't want to add anything more to it right now. I think I've said enough about parenting and getting a license and really thinking about being a parent and the responsibility of this life is going to thrive or disintegrate based on what environment you create and maybe some of the choices you make for them, but also how you help them decide how you train them to make good choices or make the choices for themselves, and if they make mistakes, how to get back up. All of those things, the tools for life. That is your responsibility. And if you think you're just going to have a kid and you have some kind of set path for them, then you should go get the license. That's all I have to say. And same with teachers. This is how I'm going to be teaching. I think you're going to lose them and you're going to get frustrated. So that's the end of parenting, teaching, and children, and number 48. And I know it was a long one, but I can say so much more about it, but hopefully I touched on some analogies and some basics that I think would help the world go forward in a better way, because it all starts with when that child comes into the world. Thank you very much. Ciao, bellas.